In front of the whole team, my boss yelled, "Who let her touch the budget spreadsheet? Now we're all screwed." He turned and roared with laughter, slapping my back so hard I nearly fell over while adding, "Maybe stick to making coffee, sweetheart." Instead of arguing, I forwarded his 3 unauthorized purchases to accounting and smiled sweetly as they marched him out in front of everyone 2 weeks later. I'm not someone who needs to be the center of attention. I show up early, keep my head down, and let my work speak for itself. For the past 6 years, I've worked as a financial analyst at a mid-sized marketing firm in St. Paul, Minnesota. Nothing glamorous, but I liked my job. I was part of a small but solid finance team. My old boss, Jenna, was great. Organized, respectful, actually listened to her staff. She ran things tight and clean. Then out of nowhere, Jenna was gone. We were told she'd moved on to other opportunities, but the whispers around the office said she clashed with upper management over some budgeting decisions. 1 week later, we got Rick. Rick Harmon walked in like he owned the damn place. He didn't even wait for intros. First day, he clapped his hands and said, "All right, folks, time to take this pig and make it dance." His words. He was loud. He cracked jokes all the time. The kind of jokes that made you uncomfortable, but weren't quite bad enough to report. He was tall, wore flashy watches, and always had some story about a golf trip with his C-level buddies. He constantly interrupted people. When I tried to explain something about our quarterly report, he waved me off with, "You don't need to worry about that part. Just make it look good for the VPs." The worst part? He loved humiliating people, especially women. And for whatever reason, he decided I was going to be his punching bag. I don't talk much in meetings unless there's a reason. But that didn't stop him from constantly calling on me, asking things like, "Tell me, spreadsheet queen, is this where the magic happens?" Then laughing like he was the funniest guy in the world. It wore me down, honestly. The eye rolls. The sweetheart comments. One time he called me Budget Barbie because I used color-coded highlights. I told myself to just hang on. That this was a phase. That he'd move on or mess up and be gone like most jerks eventually are. Then came the Thursday. It was a regular team check-in. We had 10 people gathered around a long table in the shared workspace. Rick had insisted on doing these open concept meetings. No privacy.
No professionalism.
Just chaos, and his voice echoing across the office. He opened the budget spreadsheet I'd been working on, one I had been updating for 2 weeks, and scrolled through it like he didn't recognize any of the tabs. He zoomed in, squinted, and then said it. "Who let her touch the budget spreadsheet?" He looked right at me. "Now we're all screwed." Then he laughed. Loud. Long. Like he was on stage at a comedy club. He said frozen. My stomach dropped. But he wasn't done. He turned to me and actually walked over. He slapped my back hard and said, "Maybe stick to making coffee, sweetheart." I nearly fell out of my damn chair. Everyone went quiet. Not one person laughed. A few stared down at their laptops. A few gave me awkward side eyes. No one said a word. And I didn't either. I nodded. Just once. And I stared at my screen. But inside something was boiling. Something I hadn't felt in years. After the meeting, I stayed late. I went back through the spreadsheet, opened up the version history, and downloaded every change time-stamped, labeled, backed up. He'd erased 3 entire tabs I built. Then he repasted sloppy charts with fake numbers that didn't even line up. That was the surface. Then I went deeper. I pulled up the corporate credit card statements, something I had access to as part of the regular monthly finance audit. I filtered the purchases by department head. Rick had made 3 charges that didn't match any submitted expense reports. 2 high-end dinners in Las Vegas. One at a steakhouse, one at some rooftop bar. One espresso machine, $1 $2.49. Shipped to a residential address. His condo. He hadn't submitted a single receipt.
No approvals.
Just raw charges sitting in the account, unassigned. And they were recent. I didn't react. I didn't get emotional. I just opened a clean Word document and made notes. Charge dates, vendor names, shipping info, and which line items he buried them under. I attached everything in a folder, then drafted an email. Hi accounting, while reviewing Q1 departmental spend, I noticed some discrepancies. Please see attached documentation for unauthorized transactions made using the corporate card. Let me know if further clarification is needed. Best, Alicia. My name's Alyssa. I figured you should know that by now. I CC'd our internal auditor and my new indirect manager. Not Rick. Then I shut down my computer and went home. I slept like a rock. No one said anything the next day. I didn't get a reply. But something was clearly off. Rick was quieter. Tense. He stopped doing his morning stand-up jokes. He canceled the Monday team meeting. 3 days later, I saw the internal audit team walk into the main office. They didn't look happy. Still, I said nothing. I did my work. I helped a new hire set up an expense account. I reviewed marketing's budget request. I watched Rick avoid my desk completely. Then, 2 weeks to the day after that awful meeting, it happened. It was 10:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. I remember the time exactly because I had just logged a call with the digital marketing lead about his department's upcoming spend, and I was updating a projection chart. Then I heard the heels. Sharp, fast steps. 3 people walking in unison. I didn't even have to turn my head to know who it was. Human resources, accounting, and internal audit. They walked past my desk, straight into Rick's glass office. They didn't knock. He looked up, confused, then fake smiled. You could hear it. His voice climbing into that fake casual pitch he used when he was trying to charm people. Oh hey, everything okay? They didn't sit. The head of accounting laid a folder on his desk and said, loud enough for most of us to hear. We need to talk about these purchases. Right now. Rick's face dropped. He stood up fast and tried to close the blinds on the glass wall. But the strings were tangled. It was messy. Embarrassing. He gave up. We all watched. No one typed. No one whispered. Every single person on the floor just froze. He started explaining, hands waving. He turned red. Then purple. I saw sweat forming under his collar. He pulled out his phone at one point, tried to call someone, but they told him to put it away. Then it got quiet. And that's when he pointed toward my desk. I was on the far end of the floor, but I knew exactly what he said. She's out to get me. This is personal. I didn't flinch. Just stared straight ahead at my screen, pretending to be adjusting a cell in Excel. The internal audit rep said something back, but I couldn't hear it. A few minutes later, HR stood up and walked out first. Rick followed, red-faced and breathing heavy. And that's when it happened. They walked him out. Through the floor. Through all of us. No packed box. Just his phone, his keys, and that same cheap cologne he used to spray like he was covering something up. He looked at me again. This time his eyes weren't angry. They were scared. I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I just stared at him until he was gone. You'd think that would be it. That the bad guy lost and life went back to normal. No, because 2 days after Rick was fired, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. You think you're so smart. You just made enemies you don't even understand. Then another. Hope you enjoy working weekends. I reported both to HR immediately. They said they'd look into it. They pulled phone records, contacted IT, the whole deal. They couldn't tie it directly to Rick, but I knew it was him or one of his buddies. But that wasn't the twist that hit the hardest. Remember Jenna? My old boss? The one who left suddenly? She called me out of the blue. I hadn't heard from her in over 6 months. Hey, she said, I heard about Rick. Someone in corporate mentioned your name. I told her everything. Every detail. She went silent for a while, then sighed. Yeah. That tracks. He's done this before. I tried to report him when I was still there. He had someone up high protecting him. That's why I left. I asked her who. She gave me a name. Craig Holloway, Senior VP of Ops. I'd heard his name before. He was never on site. Worked remotely out of Denver supposedly. He signed off on Rick's hire. And just like that I realized this wasn't over. Rick was the face. But the rot? It went deeper. And if Craig had known about Rick's expenses, that meant someone else should have been held responsible too. I pulled every document I had. Reopened the spreadsheets. Checked every approval chain. And there it was. Craig Holloway signed off on the same card policy waiver Rick used to make those charges. There was no policy for those waivers. Craig had made an exception. A personal one. Not logged in the official systems. It was hidden in an email approval, which someone must have printed and stuck in Rick's desk before the audit. Except, I found it. Because I had access to Rick's emails now. My new boss, Sam, had asked me to help clean up Rick's project files. IT had restored his email archive. I had every thread. And in one of them, dated 4 days before the first Vegas dinner charge, Craig had written, "Handle it how you need to. Just don't let it land on my desk." That was it. That was the key. I didn't rush. I read that email at least 10 times. It was short. It didn't name specifics. But it was enough to raise real questions. Handle it how you need to. Just don't let it land on my desk. Why would a senior VP give a vague green light to a brand new department head right before thousands of dollars were spent without proper approval? I checked the timing again. The email was dated February 9th. The first Vegas dinner was February 11th. The second was February 12th. The espresso machine? February 14th, Valentine's Day. He was bold. He had done it before. But this time he wasn't acting alone. My new boss, Sam, was decent. Smart. Quiet. He wasn't one of Rick's people. I waited until the end of the day, then walked into his office. I laid out the printout of the Craig email next to a folder of Rick's expenses. Sam looked over it all without speaking. He was calm, but I could see it. His jaw tensed. His fingers tapped. "This is serious," he said finally. "This isn't just policy violations anymore. This is exposure." I asked him if we should take it to compliance or legal. He nodded slowly. "We're not sweeping this under the rug. But we have to be careful. Craig's high up." Sam and I met privately with our in-house compliance officer, who also looked very, very uncomfortable reading that email. She confirmed what I suspected. Craig's approval never went through official workflow systems. It was completely informal. That wasn't standard. It was a way to give Rick free rein, off the books. She asked where I got the email. I told her the truth. I found it in Rick's archived email folder while helping clean up his project files. I said I thought it needed to be flagged. I didn't embellish. I didn't accuse. I let the numbers and words speak for themselves. And then the weird stuff started. 3 days later, my building badge suddenly stopped working. I was stuck outside in the freezing cold for 15 minutes until security buzzed me in. I got IT on the phone. They said it was a system glitch. The next morning, someone from payroll emailed me saying my PTO balance had been wiped, completely zeroed out. I called them. They were apologetic. Said they didn't know why it happened. Another glitch. And then a call from a blocked number. They didn't speak at first. Then in a low voice the person said, "You should let this go. You're digging into things that don't concern you." I sat there, phone in hand, heart pounding. I reported it all again to Sam, who didn't look surprised. He said quietly, "You're making someone nervous. That's how you know you're doing something right." 2 days later, the real hammer dropped. An email went out to the entire company. As part of an internal investigation, certain executive-level access privileges have been suspended temporarily. If you experience issues, please contact the Office of Compliance. People were whispering in the halls. 2 execs from legal were spotted walking into the boardroom with a senior HR rep and the head of finance. Craig's name was suddenly being avoided altogether. I checked our directory. His contact info was gone. His title removed. They didn't announce anything officially. But I knew. Craig was being investigated. She'd been watching from the outside. When I told her what was happening, she replied, "I tried to go after him too. They told me if I pushed it, I'd lose my severance." Then she added, "Do me a favor. If he goes down, make sure his name is on it. Don't let them just quietly move him to another company." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Rick anymore. It was about everyone he stepped on. Everyone they gaslit. Jenna. Me. Probably others I never met. I was done playing nice. This time I emailed the board's Ethics Oversight Committee. It wasn't dramatic. I attached everything: Rick's expenses, Craig's email, the full timeline. I told them I had already spoken to compliance and HR but wanted to make sure this wasn't buried. I didn't ask for anything. Just said I thought they should know. And I signed my name. No fear. No games. After I sent the email to the board's ethics committee, things moved fast. 3 days later, a confidential all-hands invite hit our inboxes. Required attendance, executive audit summary. They scheduled it for Friday at 4 p.m. Everyone was buzzing. You could feel it. People had no idea what it was about, but everyone showed up. The meeting wasn't run by Sam or even our CEO. It was led by 2 external investigators. One was from a private audit firm, and the other from a legal team our parent company had quietly brought in from Chicago. The presentation was direct. Our review uncovered a pattern of financial misconduct tied to former department leadership, with evidence pointing to intentional policy evasion and personal enrichment at the expense of company funds. They didn't name Rick or Craig directly, but we didn't need them to. They listed out the charges. Over $18,000 in unauthorized travel and entertainment, personal purchases charged to company accounts, deliberate bypassing of financial controls, senior executive approval granted off the record to avoid policy flags. The room was dead silent. A few people shifted in their seats. Someone in marketing muttered, "Holy crap." Then they ended the presentation with a final slide that read, "Corrective actions have been implemented. Responsible parties have been removed. Further consequences are underway." By Monday, Craig's name was removed from every system, LinkedIn, and internal doc. Someone said he was escorted out of a corporate office in Denver on Friday night. Another source said he tried to resign early, but the board had rejected it and fired him formally for cause, which meant no severance, no stock, no reference. As for Rick, that quiet little investigation I started, it snowballed. They reopened old records. They found more charges at his past job, same pattern, different cities. He was blacklisted from our entire industry's internal compliance network. Word is he's working at some warehouse in rural Arizona now, managing inventory, not people. Good. Here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. After everything went down, I got called into a room with Sam, compliance, and someone from legal. They thanked me for being thorough, said I had done the right thing, but then they hit me with this. Technically, accessing Rick's email archive without a compliance escort was a policy violation. My heart dropped. I didn't think about that. I just thought I was helping. I didn't lie. I told them the truth, that I accessed it while trying to clean up his reports and found something I felt obligated to escalate. They nodded, took notes, and ended the meeting with this: "We won't be taking disciplinary action, but please follow protocol next time." Fair. I owned it. I crossed a line even if it exposed something far worse. 2 weeks later, Sam asked me to meet him in one of the smaller conference rooms. I thought maybe it was a follow-up on all the fallout. Instead, he sat down, smiled a little, and slid a folder across the table. Inside, a formal job offer. Director of Financial Oversight. A new role. One they created after the audit findings. "You saw what others missed," he said. "You stayed quiet. Precise. And you never once made it about revenge." I told him I wasn't sure if I deserved it. He shook his head. "You kept the company out of a lawsuit. That's worth more than you know." Jenna came back. Not to the company, but she started consulting for our compliance team during some retraining sessions. We had lunch. She hugged me. We cried. HR revamped the entire expense policy. Travel now needs 2 formal sign-offs. No more side door emails. No more quiet waivers. And me? I still come in early. Still make my coffee the same way. Still wear my muted cardigans and tie my hair back. But now, when I walk past the finance team, people stand up straighter. They ask me what I think before they submit anything. I don't rub it in. But I do remember. I remember Rick slapping my back, mocking me in front of everyone. I remember the way my chest burned, but I kept my mouth shut. And I remember how I let the numbers speak for themselves. Sometimes, revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it doesn't need a scene. Sometimes it's just one spreadsheet, one email, and a quiet woman who decides she's done being underestimated. And when that woman finally speaks, you better listen. Because this sweetheart doesn't just make coffee. She buries careers.